Do you have feeling on timeline for these events, 1 to 5 years? Well, I think we're in the middle of them being executed, for lack of a better word, right now. And I mean, I really think we're moving into this model of a command society. I think those were Russell Napier, the words he used. I don't think he wanted to go as far as, say, just complete central planning, communism, socialism. I think how he's phrasing it is a command economy. He likened it something to like China. The problem with that is that China has gone from 0 to, let's say, 50 on an economic scale. And if we go to a command economy, we're going from 100 down to 50. So Chinese standard of living has increased, while our standard of living would decrease significantly by getting to the exact same point from an economic standpoint, right? So I think that's what you're seeing, and that's going to be the future for the United States. I totally think that the Fed and the government is going to be more in control of lending in the future. So creating currency units out of thin air by the process of lending them into existence, which prior to all this debt monetization has been a responsibility of the commercial banks in and outside of the United States when you consider the Eurodollar market. So I think that because if the commercial banks went out and started lending aggressively, if we did have a recovery, which I don't think we do in the economy, but if that were the case and the government was $5 trillion a year deficits, in addition to that, I mean, you would have inflation you would see greater than the 1970s. And I don't think anyone, even the deflationists, I don't think would argue that if that scenario were to play out in the real world. So I think Russell Napier hit the nail on the head when he said that he doesn't think that the government is going to allow that to happen. So they're going to take control over the amount of credit creation, or more control. And this will allow them to continue to spend money directly into the economy and send it wherever they want, whether it's in the form of additional stimulus checks, infrastructure spending, Green New Deal, you name it. College for free, healthcare for free, whatever. They're going to be able to spend money wherever they want. And then if they see inflation running hot, then they just take that lending process or currency unit creation away from the banks and give it to the central bank so they can decrease that while they're increasing the government spending or transfer payments or MMT, something like that. So, but keep in mind, that's different than what Kelton's saying. Kelton's not saying it that way. But in fact, even Kelton, I think if she saw that example, she'd be like, no, I don't like that at all. I think she's intellectually honest to acknowledge that just any government spending isn't necessarily good. She would say it's got to be productive spending. I would argue that that's just impossible for the government to spend productively over long periods of time. So that's where we would disagree. But I think that's where we're going. A command type of economy where that's more and more controlled by the politicians, by the central planners, by the government. So if you're someone like myself that believes the true wealth or the measurement of wealth in the real economy is how many goods and services the private sector, because that's sustainable, how many goods and services they can create efficiently is the measurement of wealth. And in this type of scenario I'm referring to, that means the productivity of the private sector is going to go down as the government spending goes up. And as a society, there's going to be winners and losers. But as a society, we are going to become gradually more poor over time. And I also think you're going to see the wealth gap explode higher. I think it's staggering right now. For someone that only comes back to the United States for limited time, especially in hang out in an area where I'm very familiar with, It's shocking, the difference. It is shocking. You see 10 times more people driving $100,000 plus cars, while at the same time, you see 10 times more homeless people. And you see 10 times more businesses closed. It's staggering. It really is. And I think it's only going to get worse. And that's just going to really create massive social unrest. And also, if you look back throughout history, not just in any country, and you see the real trigger to when people start getting the pitchforks, is it's when they can't afford to put food on the table. People can take a lot, and we can see that with 2020 and the cerveza sickness. I mean, you can lock them in their house. You can tell them that you can't go to the beach. You can pretty much do anything to people, and they'll kind of shrug their shoulder. They might bitch and moan about it, but they'll kind of shrug their shoulders. And I know Americans like to think that they're rugged and tough, and the government's not going to tell me what to do, and the government's going to take my lead before they get my gold. All right, well, you can talk a big game, but what happened when the government said, we're going to lock you in your house? I didn't see a lot of people put up a fight. So my point is that people will take some crazy stuff from the government in the name of safety or whatever. But the line in the sand, if history is any indication, is when people can't put food on the table. And what we're talking about is going to create an environment where that is very possible, where you have massive food shortages in the developed world. And the food that we do have is increasingly more expensive. And people, they're spending their entire paycheck on rent and putting food on the table. And that's where you want an RV. And you want to just go up to the mountains and just watch it from a distance. I think you can understand what I'm talking about. And look at these command economies. Look at what communism and socialism has done in the past. Has it ever created an abundance of food? Not that I know of. Maybe you can pick out some isolated instances, but more times than not, it creates a shortage of everything, including food. And we could see that again today, or not today, but we could see that again in the future.